feel like a fresh start. New energy, new habits, new motivation. But for a lot of us, especially those of us in our 40s, it feels different. Instead of excitement, there's pressure. Instead of momentum, there's absolute exhaustion.
Yeah, and you may be waking up thinking, okay, great, today I'll finally exercise. I'll start drinking more water. I'll start saving. Or maybe I'll finally tackle that overflowing inbox, or tidy up that closet, or I'll actually check in on that friend that I've been meaning to call. And you know what happens come noon? None of it's done.
Well, sometimes the habits that we already have, like scrolling your phone first thing in the morning, skipping a meal, or leaving chores for later, they don't really serve you the way you want. It can feel like motivation just isn't there.
Exactly. I mean, motivation spikes, they are definitely real. I mean, I know for a fact they'll show up for a lot of people in January, setting goals, resolutions, or even just after a great night's sleep, you'll wake up feeling very motivated, and then it's fleeting. And that leaves us wondering, why can't I follow through even when I know what I should be doing?
Well, that's what we're going to dig in today. Real life struggles with motivation, willpower, and habits. We certainly don't have all the answers, and some ideas we're exploring our experience that we're challenging ourselves with. But we hope sharing them gives listeners a way to think about what might actually work for them. So let's get started right into segment number 1, noticing the signals of burnout. All right, you are a very busy mom. Talk to me. What's it like?
Well, I've had to identify for myself that low motivation can indicate burnout or depleted energy. It does not equal laziness. And that is something that I struggled with for the longest, because I thought if I didn't get everything accomplished, if I didn't do, then I was being lazy. And I know that we've sort of touched on this briefly in previous episodes, but I wanted to dig deeper for myself personally in this episode on, okay, I understand that we're all going to have moments in our life where that motivation drops, our willpower is a struggle, and we're lacking in energy. So what can we do to get through those hurdles? And I think for me is noticing first what changes what are those first signs that start to change, that indicate that, okay, I'm reaching that point where my motivation's going to start dropping. So I think instead of waiting until we get to that point to where we're completely depleted, let's start being more aware of the red flags before we get to that point. So my question was, okay, what do you notice first that changes? Is it your patience, your thinking, your body, emotions? So for me, I think the first thing that I notice is my tolerance level will start to diminish. My tolerance for noises, my tolerance for people, my tolerance for various different things. And so I noticed, okay, that's a small red flag for me. All right, I'm about to start losing my motivation. I'm starting to lose my energy. I need to nip this now before it gets completely depleted.
So I'm a note taker. And so when you're asking questions, I'm sitting there just jotting down thoughts. It's amazing how many thoughts have come out of our little sessions together.
Well, I don't do well multitasking sometimes like this, so I'll just go back and rewatch our episodes multiple times, and then I end up with filling up my notebook here with notes after the fact.
I think the first signs that show up on me about motivation, a strong disinterest in what I'm doing. It can be something that I care about. Let's take music. Music has always been a part of my life, despite my amateur level. It's been, I consider myself a pretty strongly dedicated amateur musician. And what will happen will be this lull in the excitement of what I'm doing because it's no longer stimulating me at that moment. Maybe I've practiced that piece too long. Maybe I'm getting feedback from this process of learning it, and it's reinforcing the idea that I can't do it. It's frustrating. So I'm trying to keep us at the surface level, but the topic that you've chosen for today is extremely deep because we when we talk about motivation, we talk about burnout, we have to deal very quickly with the reward center of the brain.
Yeah.
Where I have expectations and I have rewards.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a whole lots of different rabbit trails we can go down. But to answer your question directly, that interest and excitement begins to wane. I'll just notice it feels dull.
You're right.
Even though I'm trying to be disciplined at doing it. And I relate that well to the music learning experience because I've taught so much with students, and I tell them, if you're not being stimulated enough with excitement while you're doing that particular project, you need to switch to something else, because not only will it neutralize, but it'll become a drain on your energy. And once things start becoming a drain, then you not only have... It's like taking money out of a bank account that's no longer there, okay? And so we have to be aware of that. Now, granted, here's the rabbit trail I'm going to try to avoid. I'm just going to note it. I'm just going to say that it's there. If we're dealing with motivation and the lack of motivation and the depression that comes from, man, I just can't get my life together, we cannot avoid the topic very long about intrapersonal skills. Not interpersonal, but intrapersonal.
Yeah.
Meaning, I know how to have a conversation with myself. I know how to name that emotion. I know how to dissect it. I know what's causing it.
Yes.
It's amazing how that is not present in so many people. I don't know what that's like because I can have multifaceted conversations with myself on various topics, and I can win and lose arguments with myself. So it's an ongoing nightmare here. So I don't know what it's like to be someone that's like, I don't have thoughts. There are people that exist like that.
Yeah, I've got two in my family.
Okay, all right, so so that's an interesting perspective, right? Their whole experience with lack of motivation, or theirs is going to be entirely different than you and mine.
Yeah.
And so the solutions that we're coming up with, the questions that we're even asking, we're asking from the perspective of what it's like to be us.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you have to look at the fact, why are we even doing this right now? I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, we love it if anyone listening can benefit from what we're saying, but this is really about us exploring ourselves, but we're just doing it for the whole world to see, apparently. But
all five of you.
Yes.
Hi. Hello, 5 friends.
There are things that I take great pride in, and then it's like, some days when I know that is a sign of, okay, I have reached my depletion level because I just don't care anymore.
It also comes in expressions like complete disconnectivity with what's going on. People can just check out.
But I think for people like you and me, we almost do that as a, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry.
Coping mechanism, survival.
Yes. Thank you. I don't know why my mind just went blank on that.
You checked out?
Yeah, I did.
You're overwhelmed? You're burned out?
I am. I was actually, I hated that we couldn't record yesterday, but in a way I was like, yes, I need to delay this a day because I was not here all mentally, and apparently still not. But what I noticed, though, that sometimes motivation that fades, it's not because I've necessarily missed a signal, but it's because I've been doing the best I can inside a circumstance I cannot change. So
well, then you're having a healthy conversation with yourself where you're dissecting the expectations you have. Mm-hmm. Are they reasonable? And being able to silence the judge and executioner in your head. Okay, I wasn't able to get this done like I thought I was supposed to. Then I'm going to be okay with myself. I'm going to be easy on myself. Some people don't have that problem. I think I've been around people I think that needed the opposite. They needed to be a little harder on themselves because they weren't reaching their potential. And and we have to ask the philosophical question that you hinted at a while ago.
Okay.
What's the point of doing anything
Well, I mean, that's sort of where the title of this whole show came into place. Life, what's it go for? Because I constantly come back to that. Okay, if I don't do this, how is it impacting life? It doesn't really matter. If it doesn't matter if I clean my floors today or if I wait and do it in a week or a month or whatever, it's going to end up mattering to me. But in the long scheme of things, it doesn't really matter.
Well, here, once again, we've taken the topic of motivation and went down a couple of levels. And that is, you can't address motivation and what you perceive to be the lack of motivation without addressing what are your internal values. You can't address the internal values, because from those values and beliefs come these algorithms of expectations you set on yourself.
Yeah.
You can't do that unless you first develop interpersonal skills. I can analyze my belief systems and why, and I can do a diagram in my head and say, well, this belief system is impacting this motivation, and that's what's driving me. And so I think motivation comes down. I can, in the book we talked about in the last episode, there's two forms of motivation. You either have love and contentment and peace, or you have fear. Those are the two engines. Of course, they're hidden, and they have various expressions. But those are the two motivations that are down there. And so you've got to get down to the nitty-gritty, down to the kind of basement of who you are to say, okay, why am I having that expectation of myself?
Right.
Why should I have motivation to do that? And okay, well, we could flip it. I know I should be doing this, my value, and I can see, but I don't have the motivation to do that. Now we've got to unpackage a whole different thing.
Yeah.
What if we have a belief system that says, I don't want to risk trying because I believe I'm going to fail and I won't be able to deal with that. So what I'm going to do is just going to sit there and be like a deer circling the field. I'm just never going to leave the woods and get out there and enjoy the green pasture because I'm scared. It's fear.
Yeah.
Fear actually keeps us from doing it. We can get into the topic of, well, what can motivation do for us and what it can't do?
Yeah, because motivation is something that, as we mentioned earlier, it's unreliable. It's not consistent. It comes and goes. And expecting it to always be present and showing up, I think that sets us up for failure because we're relying on something that we think is going to always get us through, and it's not.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed that on the topic of motivation, have you ever noticed that what changes isn't motivation per se, but the resistance? And what I mean by that, resistance being the subjective effort or friction or internal pushback that you feel toward doing a task. So if there's a heavy resistance, the task feels exhausting or impossible. But if you've got a lower resistance, the task will feel more manageable and something that is more easily done, even if you're lacking that excitement in doing it.
All right, so I can relate. I got a major certification I'm wanting to get done in the business world, and it is a long-term project. And I am well aware when the stimulation in the learning process ceases. When I'm having to read that paragraph 3 times and I still don't know what I read. Okay. I reach my limit, and I know what it's like to be really hard on myself. Well, why can't I get 3 chapters done a day instead of just 1? I can't. My stimulation, we can't handle it for whatever reason that day.
Yeah.
But I also take great pride in the fact that I have purposely planned my life so that I don't have a lot of responsibility. I don't have any close friends. I have no children. I have no pet. I don't have even a goldfish cracker. I want 0 responsibilities because I live a life that most people don't get to live. I wake up when I want to. I have at this current time, any employees under me. I'm not responsible for anybody. I don't have any place to be. I just do my little business work for my clients, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I am not in a position to address the average family that's got 2 or 3 children Each parent's having to work full-time jobs. Well, how do I get motivation? We shouldn't have kids in the first place. I don't suffer what most people suffer because I purposely avoided having children because I'm a very selfish individual. I want to spend my money on me. I want to spend my energy on me. I want to do what I want to do with my time. God forbid I should spend it on something that looks halfway like me. Oh my God, what a horrible thought that would be. So there's my motivation factor for you that are listening that are young and have children. I have not met one person who has children that looks at me and say, I am so happy. No, and this is coming from a music educator who's owned a music school and worked with hundreds of parents. Every parent has got, it looks like their soul is coming out of their eyes on an average day because they're just exhausted. And so I don't have the answer for motivation except I don't have kids. There's my opinion, because I live a life that most people would just be very envious of. I get to go on multiple vacations. I ain't got to worry about your kid. I don't have to worry about the dog. I don't have to worry about someone depending on. None of that. No. And so if I don't feel like doing it today, I have absolutely nothing that says I have to do it today.
Yeah.
And I purposely designed my...
glad, because I've got a 15-year-old that yesterday, I mean, I was not feeling well. I wasn't sick. I think I was just reaching that I was getting depleted. And we were eating supper, and Chloe's like, you look horrible. I was like, thank you.
Man, she is so like our mother. No filter. Just BAM!
She's like, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. She's like, you just look really tired. I'm like, oh, I know. I'm exhausted.
See?
Yes. I don't need a mirror. I just have her telling me.
Does your face hurt?
Oh, my goodness.
Ooh, Lord of mercy. So heavy resistance. If I feel here's the deal. I said all that to say that I live a life that if I have heavy resistance, I just don't do it. Because I don't have to.
Well,
so
I guess
you asked me to comment on something that I have absolutely no business commenting on. I mean, what?
Oh my goodness. I think habits don't start because we magically feel motivated. I think
what kind of habits? What kind of habits? Are you talking about good habits or bad habits?
Either. And I'm going to get into that.
Oh, okay.
I think habits, they start when our resistance becomes low enough to act, or the crisis that happens in our life triggers something. So let's take for an example someone that starts out with drugs or alcohol. Not all cases, but I know a lot of times a form of crisis has happened in that person's life that has triggered that sequence of events. That could be a habit that is developed due to a crisis that's happened. So in that case, I'm not talking about the resistance being low enough. The resistance being low enough meaning that, okay, I don't feel motivated, but I can take on something that's small enough that I don't feel like there's something fighting against me on it.
Yeah, you have to, you need to do something that's easily attainable, easily executed, so that you can have a reward there that increases motivation, increases morale, and reconfirms to you that, hey, yes, I can do this. This is what's called scaffolding in the educational world. Like, I have not made a lot of friends in the music education world because I'm just so outspoken, as you can imagine. That my approach to music education was at times the antithesis to the way other people would do it. I would never give students, particularly my adult students, the hardest piece they could tackle. No, I ascertain how much time and energy do you have on a weekly basis, and what can I assign you when you get it done this week. Short-term rewards, and you gradually move toward the goal.
Yes.
And that's just from being an educator, that's what advice I would give people for long-term motivation is have short, attainable goals that you can get done in a relatively short amount of time, because the brain only rewards or is attracted to those activities that it can anticipate a reward. If it's 6 months away, Heck, if you have a 5-year goal, the average brain it's not gonna process that very well. It's not gonna be a motivation to that. That is stimulating. Like it's very motivating as a child to see the Christmas present under the tree. I am motivated to open that Christmas present. Why? Because it's right here in front of me. I can see it, and the brain can process that. When something's out of sight and it's completely unattainable right now, the only form of motivation you're going to have towards something good is a deeper, more mature drive based upon the values, the messages you're telling yourself. I believe I can reach that. You're having to tell yourself that every day, even though you have no proof in front of you that that is attainable. That is an entirely different journey than having the motivation to, I have a motivation to eat this chocolate cake. Well, because it's rewarding right now, right? This is why gambling can become addicted to people, because the anticipation, I'm just going to get a big reward.
Yeah.
Is it? So the development of habits that are good. I think the whole premise of today is developing habits that are good and are building your life, taking it to the next level.
Yeah,
One step at a time.
I do think, though, that it is, and we could get into a whole nother episode here, but it is worth mentioning that in the process of being self-aware of the habits that you need to be creating and you need to be fulfilling, you need to also be aware of the fact that you may already have habits in your life that need to be modified. And I've been reading, I read a book a while back called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and he mentioned that, I'm probably going to forget the way he worded it, but basically that once you become aware of a habit, you have the opportunity, the responsibility to change that habit. Him referring to the negative habits that we have in our life.
Okay. Well, I think the takeaway is, if there's something that you know you need to do in your life or want to do, you've realized this is important, but it is not something I can get done today. It's a multi-step, multifaceted journey.
Yes.
You're going to have to create milestones, particularly on a weekly basis, that provide a sense of accomplishment and a sense of reward and a sense of celebration. So let's say, I need to lose 35 pounds. Well, you're not going to lose that in a day. You're not going to lose that in a week. But what you ought to do is, instead of completely punishing yourself for a 6-month journey, you're going to have to do this in micro steps. Okay, you managed to lose 15 pounds. Okay, you better go out and give yourself a treat and celebrate that. Break the rules. Because if you don't, you're going to feel like you're choking. Your motivation is going to drop because you're not doing something that's fun. So one thing that I have helped, because I have a few goals I want to do in life, and I have allowed myself, and this is really hard, and I think you'll appreciate this, to sit down and play some cheesy game on my iPad or on my phone.
Yeah.
Because it helps me disconnect and go at it again.
Right.
I have never been cursed with having addictions or having bad, destructive habits. I've also been blessed where if I want to go do something, I'm going to do it. I can set my mind to it.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I've done multiple degrees, and those require long-term planning. Those require consistent discipline doing. I can do it. If I think we could formulate a plan. We could formulate a formula here. One, if the person needs to evaluate their own values, why is it they're wanting to do what they want to do? Or why is it they believe that they should be doing this? Is it reasonable? I mean, it's not. If we have talking with a working mother that's got 2 children, she has a job, and she's trying to. I was talking to this the other day. This is perfect. The person that was cutting my hair the other day, she was like, I just want to lose some weight. I want to be this hot mom in her 40s, and I said, you have 3 children, right? He goes, yeah. I said, you have a full-time job, right? I said, what do? Get 10 minutes max to yourself on any given day? She says, what's your point? I said, you got to be reasonable. But are your goals actually attainable? Are you being too hard on yourself because you don't look like a model according to whatever ridiculous standards that are there? But look what you are doing. You're a mom and you have all this whole full-time life. And so we have to evaluate, are those expectations realistic first? The values could be screwed. And then you're just making things more difficult. And then we develop a reward system to get to that goal. The reward is not getting to the goal. The reward, if you don't have a way of enjoying that journey, it just to drain you. Whether it's losing weight, whether it's, I'm going to learn a language. I've been piddling with Latin for 3 years now. And I'm not getting where I want to be. But I'm making progress. I can read some phrases here and there. It's a long-term goal. And so I celebrate those moments.
Right.
All right. Your turn to talk.
Well, have you noticed a habit that once worked for you, but now it makes it harder to move forward? Because I think this falls into that, it may not necessarily be a bad habit, but something that maybe you've outgrown or no longer works for this season of your life. I spent quite a bit of time trying to think about how this would apply to me. And one thing that came up was, I think due to our upbringing, our childhood, our environment, I developed a habit of being in survival mode. And at the time, that worked. But I have had a really hard time moving forward, exiting that survival mode mindset where everything in my life I see as risk, liabilities, or a threat almost. Like I have a hard time turning that part off and breaking that habit of seeing everything from a negative, threatening perspective.
I am that way, but I do not see it as a habit. I embrace it. I told my wife the other day that I thrive on being the most negative, depressed individual you could possibly know, and I find happiness in that. So it is not a habit.
Well, maybe it is a habit, but it's not a habit that is hindering you personally.
She says it's hindering me. She says, you gotta quit being so negative.
Well, I found that like in everything, I see risks. I see the liabilities. I see and I do feel like it has hindered me a lot. And it is something that I'm trying to break that habit. I've not achieved that, but it is something that I've been working on.
Well, that's a very deep admission. And as you were talking about that, I do not, when you think about a habit, we think about an activity, behavior that is a part of me, but it's not the totality of me. I like to get rid of that so I can replace it with something.
Well, I don't think it's isolated to just those things.
Well, what I was getting at is the entirety of me is what you just described.
Yeah.
I don't know how to be anything but the person that's going to see the worst case scenario. I had never thought of that until you just said it, that would be a habit. That's just me. I do not know how to look at anything and go, oh, there's a positive outcome. Matter of fact, if there is a positive outcome, I will purposefully, cognitively, find something that's wrong or could be wrong with it. And then revel in the fact that I was the one that found something wrong with it. So my brain is so the opposite direction of most people that I don't know how to be anything but who I am, and that is, oh, that's not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that person is just a horrible individual. I don't want them. Or, why should I do that? That's not gonna pan out the way I want to do it. So it's not like I wouldn't even consider that an add-on activity. I consider that if you took that away, I would disappear. There's nothing to replace that with because that's who I am. I just naturally assume that person's an idiot. That person's going to be the worst individual I could possibly know. That is not even a choice. It's not like I have a tendency to see things in the negative. That's all that I am.
Mm.
And so if you say, Brandon, you need to replace that with, I wouldn't even be the brother that you know. I'd be somebody entirely different. Because I don't know how to process life without seeing that's dangerous. That's risk. That's not going to work out. I don't care if it's like a reservation to a hotel. When we make a reservation to go to a hotel or somewhere to eat, I tell my wife, it's probably not going to be available when we get there. And she's like, hush. I'm just setting you up for, realistic expectations. So I can see how someone like you would say that's a habit. That's not a habit. That's just who I am. And so I don't know how to replace that.
Well, and I'm not saying that's something that you need to change or replace. It is something that I would like to modify for my life. Just because I feel that it does hinder me a lot from different things that I would like to do, and it creates. I go into those events, those activities with a negative mindset, and I would like to modify that for myself to hopefully see if I can have a better experience due to the mindset that I change.
I know how to do that for you. So a friend of mine posted something on Facebook. Maybe I shared this with you from my friend Amy, where they have a jar, and every day they put into that jar something written that says this is something that was good today. Mm-hmm. So it's a changing of the mindset so that the automatic reaction is not the negative, it's not fear, it's not negativity. It's retraining the brain. This is basically a cognitive therapy activity on, hey, this is the type of pattern I want to embrace. So but that's not done overnight. So there's a long-term goal. That if you lived a life like you and I have lived, and were programmed to be that negative individual by default, then you're talking about doing some serious reprogramming of that algorithm underneath, and it's not going to be overnight. So I would say take that jar and fill it up, and then at the end of the week celebrate the fact that you did it every day. That's great.
Well, I think for me it would force me to stop seeing all of the negative that's there and force me to see the good, overriding my initial assumption of this is all going to be negative or this is all got risk.
Yep. Well, there you go. There's a habit that you want to try to change, and so it's incremental.
Yes. Well, and back to what I was mentioning earlier, the Power of Habit book by Charles Duhigg. He mentions that some habits, even when we know we should do them, we don't do them until a crisis hits, which I know we were talking about this briefly earlier. So my question is, why do you think it takes a crisis to trigger something we already know we need to do?
Reward center in the brain. Depends on the way you process data and sensory input. Some people don't. Some people are not that way at all.
Well,
like Jeremy,
I wrote down...
Jeremy is not one of those individuals. Jeremy strikes me as the guy, okay, in 6 months, I got to get this done, so I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do it.
He and I have actually been struggling a lot recently with being motivated to exercise. Which I know last episode you mentioned how much you despise exercise. But it is something that we know we should both be doing. It's not hard. It's just getting to that point of actually committing to doing it. A lot of people...
Interesting.
They don't do that. They don't do the things they know they should be doing until, all right, let's say they have like a heart attack and they're just like, oh, you've got to change your lifestyle or you're going to be dead in X amount of years. There's a crisis that motivates people, okay, I'm making a change. But why can't I, knowing very well that if I don't make this change, something bad could happen, why can't I go ahead and implement that? Why is that not motivation enough?
Same reason people don't quit smoking. No immediate pressing concern. And it's the reward center of the brain and the disconnection between the reward center of the brain and the prefrontal cortex and ability to plan and to experience the future as if it's now. The failure that takes a lot of computation, so the brain's going to avoid doing that. So I always go back to the human development explanation for why the motivation. That's one of the big topics of human development degree is the motivation factor. And it all comes down to the wiring up here. Now, someone that takes a spiritual approach, the devil made me do it, or the devil's in my back, or, I got to pray more, or whatever spiritual activity, religious activity you think is going to be. I always view things from the materialistic human development perspective when it comes to these type of things. And really and truly, your brain has not wrapped itself around the fact that future is a pending reality. It does affect people when they get like a diagnosis of a terminal degree. You're going to be dead in 3 months. That feels more final. There's a finality to it.
Yeah.
But to say, if I don't exercise, it's going to catch up with me one day. It's nothing final. It's not the concrete. Yeah, it's too abstract, right?
Yeah. Well, I wrote down this when I was thinking about what a crisis actually does, like behind the scenes.
Okay. Yep.
3 things that changes. Crisis, it removes optionality. So before a crisis, we have the mindset of, oh, I should do this. Oh, I'll get to it eventually. Now's not the right time. But during a crisis, that choice disappears. And the cost of not acting becomes, like we were saying, more tangible. It becomes clearer than the cost of acting.
Good. That's good.
But I would like to be able to get to the point personally where I can mentally override that, not waiting on the crisis to happen.
Why?
Well, I guess it depends on the thing itself, but let's say exercise, for example. I know it's something that's beneficial for my health. So why is it not something I'm doing on a regular basis? Why do I have to wait till a crisis happens that motivates me to do this?
Why would you be motivated if there were a crisis?
If I wanted to have a better quality of life.
Why?
Well, to hopefully enjoy life more. Fulfilling. I guess it depends on what the crisis is. I mean, we're getting into a more of a hypothetical scenario here that, you could go down various rabbit trails on.
Yeah, you're going to come around back to my book, Contentment and Misery. I'm telling you, either I'm extremely stupid and mad, or I'm extremely brilliant. Only time will tell. Here's the thing. When it comes to habits, I don't have any sage wisdom, sound wisdom to give. I live a life that if I don't want to do it today, I don't have to do it. Besides going to work, earn a little money. I don't want to clean those floors, I don't clean those floors. If I want to eat bad today, I'll eat that bad. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a value system. Why we can talk about money. There's people that are really frugal savers. Why? I'm going to retire one day. Well, you're going to retire, and then your joints are going to be so messed up you can't go anywhere and enjoy it. So we can't address the habit issue unless we address the values, which I was being the devil's advocate, asking the annoying questions of why. But you got to get down to this. Why is it you really want to do this? And and look at square in the eyes and say, do I really believe in this?
Back to the 3 things that a crisis creates. All right, we talked about it removes optionality. And I think it also can create an immediate emotional reward. Even if it's a painful one, because
exactly.
a painful action in those moments can feel better than just being helpless.
Well, pain is a deterrent. Pain is a strong motivation factor to avoid it.
Yeah. But I think in those cases, the habit doesn't start because it's healthy. It starts because it stops the bleeding of that crisis in the moment.
Yes.
And thirdly, I think a crisis, it can cause an override of the energy cost calculation. Because I think...
What? My brain didn't compute that. Say that again.
It overrides the energy cost calculation.
Oh, yeah. Because it just completely shuts down that algorithm and says this has to get done now, otherwise I die.
Well, and I think it takes away the question, is this worth my energy now? Because it's like, okay, it's not about that anymore. It's do or die scenario. I'm being extreme here. But like when Jeremy and I, this last flip house that we did, oh my goodness. It was one of those projects where, I mean, I was spending all day. I'd take Chloe to school, I'd work all day, go pick her up from school, take her home, go back over there, work in the evenings. It was like that for about 5 months. Working on the weekends, I was so depleted, I was so burned out. And the only thing that kept me going was, it wasn't energy. I didn't have much energy left, but it was the crisis factor of, this is costing me X amount of money every day if I don't complete this. And so there was this override factor of, it's not about whether or not it's worth my energy. I didn't have an option. I mean, it's about a financial crisis at that point.
Talking about value system here. My wife and I just had this conversation.
Okay.
If God himself showed up and said, here's what I want you to do with your life, and it's going to make you a billionaire, if it required hard work, I would choose to be poor.
That was your statement?
That's my statement. That's my statement to the universe. If God told me, here is your calling, and it is a direct, clear, and it's going to be fulfillment and happiness, and if I looked at it and it required dedication, long-term commitment, and hard work, I would choose to be depressed than choose happiness. I despise responsibility. I despise having a to-do list so much that I would turn down fulfillment and purpose of life and wake up at the end of life's road having done nothing with my life, if necessary, to avoid having to do anything. There is nothing I tell my wife this on a weekly basis, there is nothing in this world that I care enough about or want bad enough to work very hard at, because it's not worth doing, in my opinion. Even if, and this is my value system, this is not for everybody, even if I knew I could solve world hunger and bring about world peace, and it's going to cure all disease, but in order to get there, I'm going to work like a dog for 10 years. It's going to be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, nose to the grind, and you just never know if it's going to work out, but you believe it's going to. I have no desire for any of that. None. I would choose to be a nobody with no money or health and doing nothing with my life to avoid having to do anything. And so when you talk about having a motivation for habits, I do the least, I'm telling you, I do the least amount possible around a few people as possible to make just enough money as possible to live as comfortably as possible. There's a balance. But I will sacrifice comfort if it requires me having to kill myself. This is, I learned it from my father. He worked hard. For what? No. So I don't work hard.
The thing is, I mean, I see where you're going with that, but Dad, I think, is a poor analogy, just because I think had he better managed his money, he would have been better off.
Daddy would have been a multi-million. Daddy can make some money, but boy, he could spend some money. Man, I think Jeremy and I were having this conversation. Daddy would have been like wealthy. God Almighty, I didn't never had that ability of Daddy to go out and just I'm gonna make this. I mean, he would just call me out. My son, I took this job the other day, made $10,000. What'd you do with it? Oh, I went out and bought a vehicle. There's the reward center. There's the bad habit we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to relate to it, just because you have a unique life that's not gonna, I think, be relatable for a lot of people.
No.
That have outside jobs, they have family members that rely on them, so it's a
now,
little.
This conversation would go entirely different. There are three people in my There are three people in my life that I genuinely care about: my wife, you, my mother, and of course Chloe and Jeremy. And my wife's family members. I don't see them a lot, but I don't have a lot of deep connection with people. I think this would be an entirely different conversation, where one of y'all in a crisis, and I had to do something about it, like I was the last resort. I think
Oh
that
yeah,
would,
I have seen that in you. I have seen you step up to that plate and you're like all action. You get defensive or whatever the scenario may be. You say one thing, but I know when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, you are there for those people in your life that matter to you.
Yeah, all three of them.
Hey.
On that positive note.
So when motivation's gone, what do you decide? How do you decide what to do next? I think we have willpower, but it's not unlimited. And Charles Duhigg, I keep coming back to him because I really got a lot of helpful information out of his book. He said the willpower is the single most important keystone habit. The best way to strengthen willpower is to make it into a habit. And we can train willpower by creating habits that require willpower in small doses, which again, we hit on this a little bit earlier. It's like strength training for your brain. Tiny reps with frequent rests. Rather than lifting just a heavy weight once and collapsing, you don't need to overhaul your day. You just need small, repeated actions that require a little discipline over time.
Yep.
So and this is probably not going to relate to you. This is more me talking to myself because
Sure.
we hear from you that you don't want to change anything.
Yeah, I'm perfect. This is the embodiment of perfection.
You're finished. You're done. Oh, if life was only that simple for us all. But I know for me, I've had desires to improve certain aspects of my life. So my challenge to myself was, what's one tiny action that I could do that will help train my willpower without draining it? And so I created like this little spreadsheet, because you know me, I love my spreadsheets. And some of these areas didn't necessarily relate specifically for me, but it was more of a broader approach to anyone that might listen up through this point that is interested in developing a small, tiny action in their life that can later be developed into a more consistent habit. And so I have like these 6 different areas of life: health and wellness, exercise, productivity and focus, finances, mental and emotional, and daily routines. And so two tiny little actions that you can pick from these areas that you might want to improve in your life. So for me, like, I wanted to start drinking more water. And I know that seems minor, but this is what it's all about, finding those tiny little actions in your life that you can improve on. And so what I did was I took Charles Duhigg's theory. He's called it the sandwich theory, where you have 2 things in your life that you're doing. You put this new habit in the middle that will help develop it into a more routine for your life. So my habit is I love having a morning cup of coffee, but I wanted to drink more water. So my example here is I decided that before I got to have my cup of coffee, I had to drink a whole cup of water. And this is more than just 8 ounces, obviously. But I wanted to drink a whole one of those. So what I did for my sandwich theory, I would fill this up, drink it on my way to school, to take my daughter to school. When I got home, I got to enjoy my cup of coffee. So there's my sandwich theory example. And so some of these examples here from this spreadsheet, it's little things like, okay, I wanted to incorporate little exercises. What I did, I have a timer on my toothbrush. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm doing exercises in that timer period. So it's not about setting a goal of, I'm going to walk 5 miles today. No, that's not realistic for me. I'm starting off small. My goal here is creating movement in my life, not necessarily a workout routine. So it is something that I'm challenging myself to get in the routine, the habit of implementing little changes in my life that will hopefully snowball into more. And what snowballed is now I now put down 5 of these a day. So yes, I've been able to.
Congratulations.
Hey, it may not mean anything to anyone else, but it's a big deal to me and my doctor too, because he was like, "You got to drink more water." So
I was listening to you talk. As while you and I are really alike in so many areas, there's a vast level of difference between maturity level here. You've got this whole adult thing going on. Checklist. I'm brushing my teeth and I'm trying to.
Wait, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm sitting in the floor doing reps.
I just realized I don't think I ever learned how to being an adult because I never really had to.
Well, you answer to yourself, and that's it.
Yeah. I don't have anyone that's. This is why I don't have people. I don't keep a lot of people in my life because I don't want you dropping by my house because what if my house is not perfect? You know, I don't want to. I don't want to be motivated like that. You know, so if I don't want to take out the trash down, take the trash down. If I want to do the dishes down, I don't do the dishes. You know, I just don't. And so, I'm not criticizing you. I was just very humored by the fact that I think I'm really, really different. Really, not just from you, but from a lot of people. And that's because life has afforded me the opportunity to be that different.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think it's better. And in some cases, I think it's worse because I don't know how to relate to the average individual. And I was just trying to relate to what you were talking about. And my brain was turned off. It's like, oh, that sounds like discipline. No. You know, so.
It goes back to what you were saying. You've got to first establish your goal for your life, what you want that to look like.
I have. And so I realized that.
But this episode's not for you then.
That's why I'm doing this. This is the resistance you're talking about.
Yes.
I don't know how to relate to this because there's nothing in life I really want to do. So I don't have any goals to which I'm working. Long term, I have some survival goals. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. I am the most interesting, non-interested individual in the world.
Well,
I have no goals.
Then you're not gonna like segment 6 then. Our action steps for turning these insights into habits. Here's another checklist.
Oh, shoot me now.
So we'll just pretend Brandon's not here for the moment. These are just, I guess, for me then. We talked earlier about choosing habits so small, they're easy. It's too easy to fail. I mean, that's why I started with, if you look back at that spreadsheet, okay, if you want to save money, start small. Transfer $10 into savings right after you get your paycheck. Don't start with, oh my goodness, I need to start making like a savings deposit of $300 a month. Start small, then you can incrementally grow. And one thing I've been trying to tell myself is to stop while it's okay. And this sort of goes back into the exercise routine for myself. I started out trying to do 30 minutes and I was just like, I felt like I was killing myself. I was overexerting. So I've given myself permission. Cut it off sooner. The goal isn't to get in 30 minutes. My goal for myself is to get in movement. Don't put a clock on it. 3, pre-decide actions. So by making a plan in advance, you're eliminating the decision point. 4, plan for inflection points. And what that means is plan for the things that you know that will prevent you from accomplishing your goal. Focus on continuity over intensity. So my goal for myself is, again, back with the exercising for an example, I'm focusing on movement, not the intensity of that movement. My goal is to get into the habit of having a regular routine of movement. And I'm using that term instead of exercise because it just sounds a lot less labor intensive. But my goal is I get in movement, set movement for the day, not an intensive workout. So I focus on the continuity, the frequency of movement, not the intensity of an exercise routine. And lastly, measure the task, not the outcome. So what I'm doing is I am not measuring what changed afterwards, the outcome of that. I am measuring the fact, or I'm judging the fact that I completed that. I completed my movement. I'm not measuring the outcome of that movement. So I'm taking away that pressure and expectation of myself of Because where I was falling short with this is I was judging myself for the fact that, oh, I'm not seeing this, I'm not feeling this way, I'm not having this experience. But if I take that off the table, if I'm not judging or measuring the task by that outcome, then I remove that sense of failure for myself.
Where's the fun in that? You're going to miss out on feeling like a failure.
I've lived too long in that mindset. My goal here is trying to change that mindset. So my challenge is, what's one small way we could treat ourselves like we're trying to help ourselves, not someone that we are trying to fix? Because I think a lot of times, especially in January, people go into this mindset of, okay, it's a new year, we got to have new resolutions, we got to fix this, we got to change this. But what if we took that off the table and said, okay, what if I don't look at myself as someone I'm fixing, but someone I am helping? I think it changes the connotation of it to where I'm not looking at myself as in a negative lens versus someone I am just helping. So if motivation dips or willpower is low, it doesn't mean that we're failing. It just might be our brain telling us to notice what's happening.
Cool. Well, noticing it gives us a chance to experiment and take small steps before things get worse. And sometimes when we show up consistently, even in small ways, motivation starts to return. Not as excitement, but as reduced resistance. Fantastic.
Yeah, so maybe the goal isn't to push harder, but to explore ways to make it easier to keep going. Smaller steps, a simpler plan, tiny rewards.
Or you could just check out entirely like I do. See ya!
That would be simpler.
Maybe we can have a little grace. Well, sometimes we may need to have a little grace for the season that we're in. Being less hard on ourselves. Yes. Because maybe life is good for the tiny habits that quietly carry us forward, and also tolerating your crazy brother that says crazy things on a podcast. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. This is Life. What is it good for? We're going to catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much.